My name is Pawel Orzechowski. Yes, I live with a surname that's unpronounceable. The nice thing is it means walnuts. So, it's a simple meaning, unpronounceable spelling. I lecture at business school of Edinburgh Uni, but in a minute, I'll talk to you a little bit about my context, because I strongly believe that both programming is a storytelling exercise, and teaching code or teaching any technical skill really is not that different from teaching someone to perform a magic trick or tell a joke. But also I believe that where I come from and my priorities really inform my choice of tools. So I want you to understand why I'm a groupie of Noteable. I'll talk about the no drama coding environment. I'll talk a little bit about giving students feedback and also driving a course, driving someone's learning with the feedback. I'll talk about the file management, because that's often a dramatic angle of teaching code. I'll talk about the user experience of teaching. So how does it feel a little bit from the point of view of a student, and the afterlife of teaching and what happens after the course is finished. I'll try to wrap this up in, I don't actually remember how many minutes I'm allowed to have. I'll try to wrap it up in 20 minutes. I'm really looking forward to your questions at the end. I've been doing this sort of teaching this way for about 3 years now, so I have a lot of cute things to tell and some battery scars. So first, my context. You might know who this little fella is. There's 20 years difference between the first Pikachu game and the current Pikachu game. And what I really, really strongly believe is that all of those 18 or 19 games that happened in the middle, they really made us culturally accustomed to this little electric rat. And it would be quite silly to skip the games in the middle. It just wouldn't be the same experience if we skipped from the 8-bit pixelated Pikachu to that one that we catch in the street. So I'm going to tell you where I come from. This was my previous job before Edinburgh University Business School. I taught in a coding bootcamp that has a few campuses around Scotland, but the benefit, so this is my classroom. This is where I would teach 20 students for 4 months, sort of from nothing, and I would teach them coding. Notice what's on the table. I'm not sure if I can zoom these slides without breaking everything. Every student is giving the same identical MacBook as they enter on the first day of school. So I can completely trust that when I tell my students to open a file, or, and software is the same as well. So when I tell them to open a file, to run a piece of code, it's just gonna work, because I know they all have one and the same MacBook. So then when my students, another thing that sort of was important for me then, this is to my students working on a piece of code. Notice what they're doing. They basically will take turn passing the laptop around and doodling. And I'll tell you a little bit about this experience. It's called pair programming. And I'll tell you how Noteable really enabled me to do this. This is a typical day at school where we would just discuss things through, but we are in one room, and also the individual sort of identical computers were important. This is Edinburgh University computing lab. Again, each student has the same computer. It's all installed for them in there, but obviously this is how my course worked 3 years ago. And as you are aware, last years were very, very different. So suddenly, when even just one of these students pulls out their own laptop because they are remotely present, then suddenly complexities do show up. So this is the context. This is just a massive list of courses that I teach right now using Noteable. Primarily, it's stuff within business school, and my sort of niche, like the place where I find myself happiest and my students find themselves happiest with me, is teaching fundamentals. So I'm teaching people who've never programmed before, who've never sort of used computer. They wouldn't know how to do tech support to themselves, for example. But also I'm teaching within Edinburgh Futures Institute, and this is us delivering, programming and sort of text mining courses to people from literature, from politics, from history departments. And now also from this semester, I'm teaching as part of Usher Institute and EDI, and that's basically to medical students. So all of these people have one thing in common, is that, this is the beginning of their journey, and they have more important things to do than do a PhD in computer science to learn how to run a file or download a folder. This is my favorite, like the most favorite part of using Noteable, of using this sort of virtual computer concept, that again, every student works technically on the same machine. Even if they are sitting on their own laptops, I have some students who use iPads to code with Noteable. It literally does not matter as long as it has a web browser. For me, that was just a complete revelation, because traditionally what would have happened, like my friends are just finishing to deliver some courses, and it was week 10 and they were still solving technical problems of their students. Still someone couldn't install something, still someone couldn't download or open a particular file, because obviously they had Macs, Windows, Linux machines, iPads even. So there was this experience of teaching tech was always the experience of never-ending tech support. Like I would have to hire for a group of 30 students, I would have to have an extra teaching assistant just to deal with this drama. Now we're delivering courses to 100, 200, 300 students, and literally within 10 minutes, they're all looking at code, they're all solving the code. And that's because of these distributed cloud-hosted computers that the Noteable team have built. And that's amazing. So the fact that it's compatible with literally any device that a student has and throws at them is amazing. I'll talk a little bit about the admin rights, because the nice thing is each of these students can install whatever on their sort of virtual computer, because it's they'll be able to sort of rinse and reset in between courses, even in between classes. So there's nothing you can really break. So I'm almost where I started. I'm almost in a room where every student has access to the same identical setup, so I don't have to spend time doing stuff. If you're not a geeky sort of Python-y person, this is gibberish for you. But what I want to point to you is some words that are luckily in English. This is literally the first top 10 lines of my Jupyter Notebook I teach for teaching. Student can import some stuff that's already within the Noteable world. Student can, within one line, just by running this, they can download extra data, extra information, extra sort of capacities. So if that was your phone, it's like downloading an extra app, but student doesn't have to type it, they just run it. And this, for those of you who know what pip is, this means that students can also actually upgrade their computer. It's almost like plugging in another graphical card or a bigger hard drive. And this all can happen within minutes. And I don't have to explain to students how to do it. Just for comparison, in old times, I would literally have to type this stuff into their terminal. Terminal, it looks like Matrix movie, sort of black and white text. This is an incredible time-saving situation, and it gives me capacity to deploy my time and my teaching assistant's time into actual teaching. And I do talk very quickly, and I'm aware I have a funky accent, so I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Next thing I would like to talk to you about is how giving feedback, and some of it is relevant to Noteable, and some of it is relevant to the pieces of software that the EDINA team managed to sort of bundle into it. Some of it is the Jupyter Notebook thing, which is, when I explain to people what Jupyter Notebook is, it's an interactive PDF. Imagine you just get a PDF file, and normally you scroll it up and down and read it. But in this particular PDF, if there's a piece of code in it, you can edit that piece of code and you can run it. So it's basically a PDF within which the learning, the coding can happen. So I'll talk about giving students feedback in all sorts of ways. So this is an example of one of the notebooks. It's, there's this Noteable interface, Dara. I'll geek out a little bit later about some of my favorite bits, but what I want to bring your attention to is this blue area here. So imagine I'm teaching, 150 students, or indeed these days, because I'm using a lot of flipped classroom learning, they do these exercises at home. So look at what's happening. This is student clicking the blue thingy. Oh, someone has a mic on and the super echo. So what happens here, within the notes, I can hide hints for students. So me as a student, if I get lost because I'm at home and I'm doing this at my own time, I can sort of unlock hints from the teachers. Another thing that we do a lot, and it's part of the philosophy, so this is an exercise that a student has to do. Again, if you're not a coder, I try to make it as English as possible. Given list of cities, just give me their names type of thing. And this is something that, again, I'm designing this so the student can partake in my courses, in our courses from home. And I literally I tell them what's expected. I tell them what their code produced. And then we just assert, like confirm whether what they're expected is the same as their actual thing. Why I'm even showing this to you is because to have this working prior, I would need weeks in a small group of 20, 30 students. Now it's just within minutes, I have the whole class interacting with their stuff, having sort of having what's expected of them on a table. This is another before and after, just to show you. So this is what a student sees. Student sees basically a placeholder, like an empty bit. This is where your code is gonna be, and then this is what I write as a teacher. I write them, and I basically, in Noteable, there's this sort of system of little hiding tricks, hiding abilities that I can say, I write my solutions here, and when it's given to the student, the solution vanishes. So the student only gets an empty gap, and they basically have to fill it in. Why that is important is that me as a teacher, I don't need to have 2 copies of the same class notes. You probably have experience of that, where you have, lab sheet with solutions and lab sheet without solutions. I don't need to have 2 copies. I have just my master copy, and I use these special tags that then Noteable will just sort of automatically hide for students. And then when students get given the solutions, it gets unhidden. It's simple, but again, it's lovely. And it's not a drop down. It's not a system specific thing. If one day I move on to a different system, or a student opens it in a different sort of Python learning environment, these will be there. It's not bound. And that's, I'll talk a little bit about this in the afterlife. This works. Noteable makes it work, but you're not married to Noteable forever, because the Jupyter Notebook is much more sort of widely used as a system, which is amazing. It means that they really respect me as a teacher, that I want to be with them, not because they bound me in some sort of, golden handcuffs of features, but rather they enable me to be mobile, and that's amazing. I really respect that, and I feel respected, and that's why I've been using this for years. So there's other cool things that I'll just mention a little bit. In those tests, this is expected, this is what you did. You get to put individual points. So in tests and homeworks, and you're allowed to say, okay, ability to do this in code is 5 points, ability to do this in code is 10 points, whatever. So I've been using Noteable to run all of my homeworks and assignments and exams over the last 3 years, and it has tackled very bravely and efficiently, the time pressure, the ability to be sort of strict and actually absolutely for sure work. When I have a room of 100 students, it does work and it does deliver consistently. So that's fantastic. So the fact I can assign a particular bits of activities to a particular amount of points, and then the mark is calculated, that's wonderful. It supports the sort of me marking some tasks automatically, like, okay, the answer should be 10, and if it isn't 10, you don't get points. And some exercises I can hand mark, when students write a little report, or a sentence explaining what does the graph do. That's also supported. That's quite nice. I really like how that's handled. I think I have a slide when I'll show you a little bit of that, but I think it's also quite well shown on their page. And finally, there's a built-in, and it showed up, I think, last year, which is wonderful. There's a built-in ability for me to send feedback to each individual student through Noteable. So in the same place where student gets their homeworks, and in the same way place where they solve it, they get my feedback and their points, which is lovely. And for me, the reason why I've put this there, a part of the fact that this is fantastic, is that this didn't used to be there. This was not in as part of Noteable because they were still building the infrastructure. And I remember telling them a few times, like, this would be amazing. This would be a game changer where I can just, with a press of a button, give the students the feedback. So the team just sat down and did it. And this is amazing. This is one of the reasons I like working with the team, because they do sort of actively add stuff. There's one feature I still haven't seen it. I'm about to see it, but I'm so excited about, and will mention it in a minute. Right, we're sort of halfway through. The managing files. I don't know if you know. I expect most of you know what a folder is, but we are entering a student body right now. So people who are 18, 19, 20 come to the uni. Their mobile phone often was their first and uttermost digital device, which is beautiful and amazing. But also it means that some concepts that are sort of quite familiar to people, who had to type everything, is things like files and folders. Like it almost doesn't matter anymore if I download a file, as long as I can see something on my screen, right? So more and more there's stuff that we have to explain as teachers, or make sure that it's not a problem. And it's just the whole suite of these extra challenges, they get solved by the way the Noteable deal with things. So I'll talk a little bit about uploading and downloading files. I'll talk about GitHub and the one button clone, which it totally deserves a heart emoji. It's game changing for the hours of tech support that I had to provide to my students in the past, and now it just happens automatically. This is just golden. If you don't know what a GitHub is, you might know what the Dropbox is. The place where you want to send someone a big file, you sort of pop it in there. It's like a website for storage. But really good metaphor for GitHub. It's a Facebook for programming code. Like on Facebook, you put all your photos and all of your privacy in there. I can share photos through, or point someone to my photos on Facebook. Is the same with code on GitHub. I can point a bunch of students to my code that lives on this website. And it's the biggest resource of that type on the planet right now. And Noteable has basically a button, they'll just do it for you, which is fantastic. It's sort of like check if there are any new notes button. And students just click it every day and they get new notes if I've uploaded some new ones. The sandbox admin rights. So for those of you who know what I'm talking about, this is where if you want to install something on your own machine. Now I'm teaching a bunch of NHS staff through Asher Institute and through the medical school, and their work laptops, so the ones that are given by NHS, for obvious reasons, are completely they cannot install anything. They cannot even install a plugin to their web browser. Like it's all absolutely. For safety and security reasons, it's untouchable. The laptop itself, it has to stay the way they got it, which means that they cannot install anything. So if they want to learn about new types of draw graphs in Python, or new way of text mining, they cannot install that ability on their computer. So suddenly, because on the Noteable, they have all of the admin rights they can possibly imagine, this is game changing, because I suddenly have people who are used to not being able to do stuff, who suddenly are able to do everything. And and literally at the end of the class, you can rinse and repeat. They can again to achieve the same level of security, they can just sort of clear it up, their virtual computer, which is fantastic. So I've showed you this one, but I'm showing this again because this is one of the most game-changing situations, especially for the NHS staff. And we've done some work with external contractors where they were saying, oh, our safety team will just not let us install anything on our computers. And then I can tell that is so not a problem, because we can just run this piece of code. It will download stuff for you, install things on your computer, and it's going to work. Right, one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about is the user experience of teaching and learning. So how does a student enter into this virtual programming world? How do I explain it to students? What if student is using this system for a few different courses? What if they're learning Python on this course and drawing things in Python on another course and R on yet another course, which is currently the case in med school where we're delivering this? So how does this system, how does Noteable change in response to what course you have in mind? And that's quite cool. the winning strategy is that within 5-10 minutes, I have 200 students looking at the code, solving simple puzzles from the very moment I told them how to do it. It's absolutely life-changing. The pair programming, this is my particular geekiness, but I'll talk to you a little bit about the experience of coding with someone. Remember that photo from the beginning of my slides where there were two students sitting at a table, passing the laptop around and coding together? Now a bunch of the teaching is delivered online. And even if it's not online, it's still a bit about touching each other's keyboards and passing objects around. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And yeah, that's what I'm excited about. So this is an example of one of my courses. Learn is Edinburgh University's virtual learning environment, where all the notes and courses are for students. So this is my fundamentals of programming for business applications. And there on the side, the student has access to their badge notebooks. I'll mention very, very briefly what badges are, but they are sort of 1 hour long chunks of learning that can happen. But student can go into the badge notebooks and then they can open their virtual computer. Just for simplicity, that's what I call notables on my courses. So a student clicks it and boom, this is their computer. They have their hard drive, they have their notes, they have their assignments tab, which is quite important. And this is my favorite button, plus Git repo. This is that button that synchronizes the notes that I've released to them with what the student sees on their computer. So every week I add new chunk of notes, and every week student just has to click this button and the new notes just magically appear on their computer. And it's so smart in the way it's done that if a student already solved some puzzles and already completed some courses, their work is never overwritten by what I've uploaded, and my work is sort of always topped up to what they have. It's just very nicely solved, and that's a feature of GitHub. This is just to show you, this is an example of how students work on their assignments. When student opens this system, this Noteable thing, from their learning environment, the Noteable knows from which course they entered it, right? So if I'm doing an R course and a Python course and another Python course, it will know where I came from. It's sort of, some people call it breadcrumbs, like Hansel and Gretel stuff. The system knows where I came from. It knows my context. So I will only see the assignments and homeworks for this particular course. So me as a student, I can fetch the new assignment, say there's a week 10 assignment. Indeed, when I'm done doing it, I can validate it. And this is for me as a teacher, I can include sort of sanity checks of, oh, don't forget there's the 10th exercise. It's like, because often we all have experience of sending an email which was supposed to have an attached file and we forgot to attach this file, right? So this is the type of, the validate button does that for you. It just does the checking. Did you actually complete all the exercises? It doesn't check if they're correct. It checks if you did have an attempt. And then me as a student, I submit. And then finally, then the time passes where me and my team will mark it. And then when it's all marked, student can just fetch their feedback from the system. So we're getting quite close to this interaction. Right, so in the next few minutes, I'll talk to you very briefly about, well, not very briefly because I'm so passionate about it. I'll talk to you about pair programming, but that's, for me, that was one of the initial reasons why I engaged with the Noteable team. I wanted a very, very smooth experience of two people discussing their code, negotiating what they want to do, very often doodle about it. This is how pair programming looks like. That you have two students trying to working together, but only one of them operates the keyboard. And the metaphor is a little bit like driving a car. So you have a driver, the person who turns the wheel and presses all the buttons, and then you have a navigator, the person with a rough idea where we're going, someone looking out right and left into oncoming cars and pedestrians and cyclists. So this is what a pair programming is, but primarily the idea is that each student has someone to talk to. And it doesn't matter that that person you talk to is not a teacher, is not a trained programmer, whatever. It actually is beneficial that they're both learning, even if they're learning at slightly different level. And this comes from the fact that you only understand something if you can describe it to another human. And that's why the two of them would be talking, and every now and then, roughly every 15 minutes on my courses, they change the keyboard. So if you were the person sort of typing versus the person who was navigating, you take turns, and you have capacity to work with both roles. Rubber duck, that's a long story, but rubber duck is a patron animal of all programmers, as you might know, and that's because sometimes if you don't have an actual human to talk to, it's enough to put a little rubber duck next to your monitor and try to talk to them. You might already get some of the benefits. So as I'm saying, every 10-15 minutes they would be switching, and thanks to Noteable, and thanks to some features that they've been building in over the last few years, when we had to switch to online teaching, and then later hybrid teaching, it's actually quite easy and Noteable, easy and doable, where they pass sort of the virtual keyboard, and students have access to the same virtual computer, right? So they, instead of passing an actual laptop around, they're passing access rights to the same virtual laptop, and they just work on video. This is, I just really love this GIF that we made, so I'm going to show it to you to distract you. But primarily, we worked with Noteable and with this sort of pair working practice in person, where it's two people in one lab. We worked with it online, and over the last few months with the Edinburgh Futures Institute, we work with it in a hybrid environment, where one student is in the room with us, with the teaching buddy, and the other students, or some students, have capacity to be remotely wherever it is that they need to be. And this is just something like we've been gathering over the last 3 years, a gigantic amount of feedback from students just to see how it works for them, where are the weaknesses of the system, where are its strengths, and how can we make it better. So this is every hour each student was giving us little X on these sort of scales. This is how it worked with our hybrid teaching course. So this was when these two students are working on their separate laptops, hooked up to a monitor, but using Noteable again very quickly. And this is when the pairs were room and room. While this was a situation where these students are actually working with another student who's remote. So there's someone working with this person, someone out there working with this person, and so forth. So these are the students that are working across sort of the digital boundary, and the teaching, the sort of the instructors, us, we're cruising through the room, but virtually speaking. Again, for us, it was very, very simple to just pop in and start working with them. And that's basically it. The last thing I can skim over or not is that the Noteable, at least for me, it's not the solution. I mean, I don't particularly care how we do it. I just want it done, and I want the student's experience to be as best as possible. So really, it is exciting, and I'm geeky, and sort of I have a PhD in computer science, so some parts of this solution do excite me. But really, what excites me the most is the things I can build on top of this. So I'm going to give you a very, very quick snippet of what are the type of things you can then build on top of it without a PhD in computer science. And that's sort of the magical benefit of sort of just plug and play, no setup environments like these virtual computers. So what they provide you, let's imagine this is a vegetarian burger, they provide you with tools, and then it's up to you to assemble your dream course. So what I'm using is something called badges. And again, without Noteable, it would be very, very hard to do it. Badge is a 1 hour long piece of knowledge where a student watches a short video, reads some code, then completes some coding exercises, and then writes a tweet about it. The type of tweet, if you have kids at school, you know what I'm talking about, the 3 stars and a wish type of tweet, where they list 3 things they learned from this experience and 1 thing they wish understood better. So this experience takes about an hour and a half and combines into a badge. And by now, I'm building a bunch of badges. We have sort of 25 across different courses, and then we can mix and match and build new courses from these badges. The plan is we're currently working on putting them on Creative Commons license. So most of these badges will be available to people this summer. But what I then would gonna do, I would take 5 of the badges and a computer lab, so a set of exercises for a pair of students to do, and I would call this 1 week of learning. Then what I'm gonna do, I would combine this sort of 1 week of learning and another week of learning, and then a big pair sort of homework, like an assignment when students would work, and then that's combined into 1 block of learning, sort of like a third of semester chunk. And then I assemble my course, my 11-week course, from these smaller chunks, and they finally get an individual exam at the end. Why I'm showing this to you? Because through and through, this is only possible because I can distribute these badges at the click of a button to every student immediately. It's because they can work in pairs without, at their own time, without me needing to set up their computers and be constantly there to help them. Because the marking is so easy and it's so built into the system. And the marking can involve, is the answer 10 or not, but also, can you write me some descriptions of stuff? So there are closed questions and open questions. So my point is, this is just how I build my courses, but it's through and through only possible because how this is done. I think this is basically it. This was my last slide, but I've spoken about absolutely everything I had to say already. So thank you for hearing me. I hope you understood my very quick and sometimes rambly chats. And I'm looking forward to your questions. And